Hey everyone, it's Astro Yoga woman Debbie Barnett. I'm here today with my good friend and Ayurvedic practitioner Vijaya Stern of Living Rasa, and you can find her website at livingrasa.com. Vijaya is based in both Laguna Beach and Marin County, California, so both Orange County, Southern California, and just north of San Francisco, and on the World Wide Web here on Astro Yoga Woman YouTube channel. So welcome Vijaya. Namaste.
Namaste, Debbie.
So I
Thank you
want
so
to
much for having me here today.
You're welcome. Vijaya is a fellow projector, so I want to share just a little bit about your astrology, yoga, and human design, because that's the main tenets of my channel, main focus. So astrologically, Vijaya is a Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, and it's also the teacher. So as an Ayurvedic practitioner and a naturopath and CBD oil spokesperson, Vijaya is definitely in the role of a teacher. And then she has Cancer moon. So Cancer is ruled by the moon. So this is a very strong moon, very much about family and nurturing and taking care of. And since she's been my Ayurvedic practitioner since I think it was about 2009, is when I
Mhm.
wandered into the Laguna Beach kirtan to drum. So very much nurturing. And then her ascendant is Leo, Leo rising. And her ascendant is 4 degrees Leo. My sun is 4 degrees Leo. So my sun is right on top of her ascendant, which that's what I'm doing right now is I'm shining a light. I'm bringing my luminosity, my Leo sun, to shine the light on my friend and her practices and how she helps people, and also a little bit about holistic health because my channel is about, I call it a metaphysical mashup lifestyle channel, and definitely holistic and alternative health is part of that. So talk just a little bit about how you came to find Ayurveda, what Ayurveda is, a little bit about the history, um, whatever you want to discuss.
Well, when I was about 22, I had two daughters and I was pregnant with a third one. And I had a really profound spiritual experience with the Divine Mother. And after that, I vowed to find her again because she actually appeared and spoke to me. And when I went on my journey to find her, the first thing that I discovered after that was Ayurveda. And we in Ayurveda talk about the feminine principle all the time, and that the Divine Mother is actually the embodiment of consciousness in 7 billion forms, which is each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
So as I went on this journey and I realized that she is incarnating in all these people, and the spiritual experience that I had, which was that she said to me, how would you have known me if I hadn't exited through her form? And she was talking about my own mother that I lost when I was 11. So through that experience, I realized that the way to get the mother energy back in my life was to go on this journey of Ayurveda, the science of life, and see how I could always have a relationship with her. So as you see behind me, there's several herbs, and each one of those herbs is like having a relationship with the Divine Mother, because each herb has its own vidya or wisdom. And that living vidya lives within each of the embodied species in the universe. And the vidya of each one of these plants is so intelligent that it can come into the body and rewrite our own intelligence and create homeostasis. So my goal was to have a dialogue with her in the many ways that I can. And one of them I noticed that's really gotten developed for me is when I'm working with the herbs, she's talking to me through their medicine. And that's a wonderful way to have this greater experience and relationship with the mother once I lost the more refined and microcosmic experience of my own mother,
Uh-huh.
which, as we all know, we love our mother dearly, and there's a limitation to that love. So
Right.
it's just been ever since then at 22 that that's
Mm-hmm.
started. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then I met my teacher soon after I read his book, which
Yeah.
was the first book that I read. And
Tell us your teacher's name. He's quite
his name is
famous.
Dr. Vasant Lad, and he's probably the most well-known authority in Ayurveda in the world. They just actually finished a movie about him, which I just saw up at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, called The Doctor from India. And that's a great film. And it's not out yet to the public. They said it'll probably be about 6 months and you'll be able to, get it on Netflix or buy it or
Mhm.
whatever. or other film festivals. So you might want to check that out.
Yeah. And he's the one that gave you your name, right?
Yes, he did.
So explain your name, because when I first met you,
Mm-hmm.
it was at your house for like a potluck kirtan sort of thing, and I was afraid to say your name because I didn't want to say it wrong.
A lot of people have that
I
problem.
didn't want to mispronounce it, Vijaya. So explain what your name means and how Dr. Laud gave that to you.
Well, actually, my name means victory. And my personal name, my birth name is Vicky, which also means victory. And my last name was McVeigh. So V from the beginning of my name and A from the end, VJ, which was actually how he gave it to me. And he goes by vibration and frequency. So by getting that name, I realized my parents named me well because they got the frequency right, you know, because I believe that the name that he gave me was probably the most vibratorily correct for me. And so anyway, I took on that name, and I've loved that name because it gives me victory in my work when I'm working with a really challenging situation. And when a person calls me Vijaya as my client, I go, okay, that you're reminding me right now that I need to be the embodiment of that victory over their challenges that they brought to my door, you know? So I wear that, and I try to be in alignment with that at all times.
Something about human design, too, I'd like to mention. Both Vijaya and I share the same type, and that is projector. It's about 20 to 22% of the population, and we're here to guide people. We're like the coaches on the sideline. We can only guide the people that are on our team. We can't guide the other team. We have to be invited. And so I think I was the one that turned you on to human design. Probably in
No,
2009.
actually, Rod did my chart in the very beginning. Yeah,
Oh my God.
this was back in the mid 80s. I believe was when I started. No, I'm sorry, it was mid 90s.
Yeah.
I was being flown to Las Vegas every 5 weeks to do all the consultations for an Ayurvedic center there. And they didn't do pulse diagnosis or anything. So they flew me in to do this. And they also had Ra come and teach at their center.
Oh, nice.
And so they wanted to know what all of their teachers' charts were so that they could, you know,
Right.
understand how we'd all work together. So they did my chart with Ra one time. I didn't get to meet him because we would come different weekends to do our work. But
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that was way back when. I didn't even know what it was, and I didn't really dive in until when you got interested. I think you reawoke it for me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So projectors are the wisdom keepers, if you will, here to guide others if the invitation is correct. And you're emotionally defined, which means your emotional solar plexus is defined, and that's your authority. 50% of the population has that defined, 50% don't. And I have that defined. So what that means is that we're to sleep on things. Like you don't make decisions in the moment, but over time, and you ride the wave. It's not a pulse, as if that's not defined. It's a yes or no in the moment. Otherwise, we're supposed to sleep on things. So it's a very strong emotional pull that acts like a wave. And then your profile, which are the little numbers beside your design sun and personality sun, that's sort of like your ascendant or your role that you're to play. And you're a 4/6. So it's the opportunist role model. And I remember when I met you, you had been taking care of your now older grandson, at the time your only grandson. So Cancer Moon loves families, like babies, yay. So you just come out of what was called being on the roof, which is between the Saturn return at 28 and the Chiron return at 50, where it's more of an internal, like you became sort of a second mom again for your grandson. And then that transition, and then you started your practice and doing more like teaching at yoga teacher training places down in Encinitas and different places. So you were coming off the roof, and you were coming into at that time more of the fullness of your role modelness. And so I was online earlier, and I looked up what the 4/6 was. And let me see if I can find this real quick. It was talking about, or maybe it's on this computer. I got two computers now, and so I'm all, as if I wasn't Vata enough before. It's even more. But it's like it was the woman up on the hill. You know, it's like you had to climb the hill to get to the wise woman. I don't see it now. But like going up to your house, like I was just looking at my videos online. I thought I had taken a video of like the drive up to your actual abode, which she lives in this beautiful dome house. Um, but it's harrowing. It's like, it's Laguna Beach, Laguna Canyon. So you're up and down and over. It's crazy. So you really do have to like climb up the mountain to go speak to the guru that only sees you when she's available and wants to.
That is so true about me. And it's so funny because I was thinking about this the other day because I have people comment about how harrowing my heel is all the time. I have lived on a hill almost my whole life. You know, the one house that I first met you in, it wasn't on a hill, but I didn't like it.
The view, it was on Grand View.
That's true. And it was on a hill above the ocean in a sense, but it wasn't like you had to climb a hill. But my house,
it was though, like if you're coming from PCH to go up that hill.
Yes, I guess that was. But my house in Marin County was even more harrowing than this one is. So people really had to earn coming to see me. If they made it here, they were supposed to hear what I had to say.
The guru up on the mountain that you gotta like make this pilgrimage, this trek to get there. So yeah, it was fun to watch. Okay, here we go. At 50 or when the Chiron returns, the 4-6 comes off the roof. They now have the wisdom of the first 28 years and how things don't work so well because the 6 acts like a 3, which bumps into things to see what works and what doesn't, and how it's to be inwardly focused. They also have the experience of the 28-50 and outwardly focused, having watched how it all works. The 4-6 is ready to step into their role modelhood. This is not a pushy role model. Okay, this is the rise woman on the hill. If she is asked or it is worth her while, she will get involved and help out. People will seek out the role model for their perceived value.
Oh, interesting.
That's you.
Yeah. You'll have to send me a link of where you got that from. I'd like to read.
loveyourhumandesign.com. So I just typed in 4-6 profile human design, and this was the first one. It's Love Your Human Design.
Oh, that's great. So all your listeners can go and look up their own, huh? Exactly. That's great.
So tell us about naturopathy, because you did that prior to Ayurveda, right?
I kind of did them simultaneously because I was studying with Dr. Laud when I first met him, which was immediately after I read his book. So happened at the end of his book was a phone number. So I called the phone number thinking I'd call his clinic, and he answered the phone at home. And so we had about a 2-hour talk, and I convinced him to come to Laguna Beach and teach here. So for 8 years, starting in 1984 until about 92, I hosted workshops with him. And then I graduated from his institute in 1992 because I didn't actually go to Albuquerque and study at the institute until my kids were old enough for me to travel and be away from home. They were in their teens by then. And so at that point, I was already doing my naturopathy training a bit, you know, when I started going there, but it was a correspondence course because naturopathy wasn't legal in California, so there was no schools here.
And what is that, by the way? In case
naturopathy is very similar to Ayurveda. The only difference is the country and the language, really. That's why I did it, was because people would recognize naturopathy more than they would recognize Ayurveda back in 1985 or so. So naturopathy is all natural medicine using herbs and diet and food, you know, and natural cures like, let's say, heat and cold therapies, maybe doing colonics or enemas, you know, doing maybe masks or castor oil packs and things like that. But everything's all natural cure.
Some salts, baths.
Yeah. So I did that training. And like I said, I mainly did that just so that people could kind of wrap their head around what I was going to be offering them in Ayurveda. And so then I could say, well, I'm doing the Indian naturopathy.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then CBD oil.
CBD oil is such an amazing herb. And the reason why...
Stop you just a second. I don't need to say anything else from this point on because I know you will go off. So take it away. This is her passion, so go.
I have a passion for it because the plant cannabis sativa in Sanskrit is also called Vijaya. So since it has my namesake, and I always knew that it was a very medicinal plant, and yet it was illegal to use in our country. And as you can see, I have all these herbs behind me, and someday I was going to get cannabis on my herb shelf in one way or another. Now I actually carry it in this form here, which is the Prime My Body hemp oil. And so instead of it being from a cannabis-based source, it's a hemp-based source. So the difference between the two is cannabis sativa is where they get CBD oil that also has high THC. And if the THC level is 0.3 or higher, they call it cannabis sativa or cannabis. And if it's lower than 0.3, then they call it hemp oil. Okay. So it's what we consider industrial hemp, or hemp that they grow for plants, for paper or clothing and things like that. So that particular strain does not have a lot of THC, which is a wonderful thing because we can calm down our nervous system, but we don't have to get high every time we do it.
Right. So how does that work? I mean, the brain has cannabinoid receptors in it, right? I mean, our
brain has several cannabinoid receptor sites. The most common ones are CB1 and CB2. So CB1 helps the nervous system to calm down, and it runs through the nerve pathways and strengthens them, kind of like the fiber optics between a computer and a printer, for instance, that helps the communication. And CB2 coats the outside of that nervous system along with all your cell membranes and your skin. Then CB1 and 2 also, they share different glands and organs that they also have receptor sites on. We actually have more receptor sites for endocannabinoids than we do any other receptor sites in the brain. They say that because we have those receptor sites, that we require that medication in some way. And there's some foods that have very, very small amounts, like the cruciferous vegetables, and a few other things, which I'm not really pulling up in my brain right now, but hemp oil is the highest level. So we want to get it, and we want to get it in major doses because we're all deficient.
So what's it good for? Like, I know people that put their pets on it, pets who are having seizures, they put their kids on it who have some kind of learning
disabilities. A lot of autistic children use it, seizing kids or seizing adults, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, cancer it's good for. Usually with cancer, to kill the cancer cells, you want to use the actual THC because that does kill cancer cells, where the CBD itself just helps the whole immune system rebuild, because that's one of the things that CBD does.
So you wouldn't necessarily say it's healing you, but it's aiding the body in healing itself, correct?
Exactly.
You don't want to make claims of, it heals cancer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because we don't know what it does. It helps. It aids the body in whatever it needs to do to support life. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that I love about CBD oil, and of course THC helps do this also, is that it actually brings the cell back into homeostasis again. So when the cell's in homeostasis, it can function the way that particular cell should function. Optimally. So it can affect all the different cells and bring them all into their own individual homeostasis. There's not too many plants that can do that. These plants that are in these herb jars behind me, they have the Vijaya intelligence to know which organ to go to and which dosha, vata, pitta, and kapha, the 3 body types in Ayurveda that rule the 5 elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So these herbs have some amount of each one of those elements in the body or in the herb. And when it goes into the body and it knows what organ to go to, it can rewrite those elemental configurations that organ needs. Yeah. So I might have an herb, let's say for the kidneys and bladder, that's moisturizing, and another one that's heating, and another one that's drying. Right. And it goes in and it rewrites that. With this CBD oil, the beauty of it is it assists all of those herbs in doing a better job, because it's helping the cell to regain its own internal intelligence. Right. So that's cool. Everybody needs that. In 1937, when our country was using hemp for paper and cotton instead of cotton, for fiber and all that, and even the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper, we were using industrial hemp quite a bit. But then big money came in and they wanted to shut down both those industries, the paper and the cotton industry, because it was threatening their industry. So they villainized not only the industrial hemp, which really, was about money, but they also did the THC, and that's when reefer madness and all that came out. So we've been deficient in these cannabinoids since 1937. So at least 2 or 3 generations of people now have not gotten cannabinoids. And it would be like saying, you haven't gotten any essential fatty acids in your diet for now 3 generations. Of course, we're going to see more autism and things like that if we're not feeding our brain.
Right. So can you ship it out of state, or what? Is it legal?
This particular CBD oil, because it's from hemp, is legal in all 50 states. Okay. If it's from a cannabis-based source, then it's only legal in the states that have either medical marijuana legal or recreational marijuana legal.
Would somebody need to have a prescription or?
No,
whatever?
Not for this one. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you?
What they would do is they would go to my website, which is Living Rasa. It's LIVINGRASA.primemybody, which is the brand of this oil, .com. So livingrasa.primemybody.com. livingrasa.com is my own personal work website. So it's got the same name. So you just have to remember that. Mm-hmm.
And just in a parting little thing, since we're just transitioning into spring, what kind of diet or practices do we need to be thinking about for a new season?
Well, we're actually in the middle of a doshic season. So where the year is broken up into 4 seasons, there's only 3 doshas. So 2 of the doshas share spring. So the beginning of spring is shared with the winter season, which is ruled by Kapha dosha, which is the element of water predominantly and secondary earth. So during this time, we have more rain and snow, and we get more bound and kind of inert and sometimes depressed and lonely and separated. And we go into our dark period in the darkest day of the year, which is the winter solstice. So during that time, kapha starts to increase. We put on weight, all kinds of things. So we've already been treating kapha dosha since that winter solstice. And so by the time spring comes, it's like the snow is melting and starting to run into the rivers. And so in our body too, maybe that inertia and stagnation and depression is starting to move as the sun starts to shine and melt the snow, and starting to warm our body up also and allow us to be a little more mobile and little more alive. But that's why in the springtime we usually will get a cold or a flu, because our body's doing a spring cleaning. Because it's a time of year when all that is melting down and releasing out of the body.
So what kind of diet would somebody?
Well, a kapha reducing diet is based on foods that are pungent, meaning spicy, like garlic, onion, chili, cayenne pepper, horseradish. Foods that are bitter, like all the dark bitter greens like dandelion and kale and chard, and a lot of these herbs are bitter. Herbal bitters, or a cup of coffee or black tea would also be considered bitter. And then astringent foods. So foods that are astringent are foods that would normally be drying or cause gas. So like beans or broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, light leafy greens, things like pomegranates or persimmons that you put them in your mouth and your mouth puckers or dries out. So any of those type of foods would be considered astringent. So astringent would dry out the kapha body. The bitter would help the kapha person, or a person that might have high kapha, even though that's not their predominant dosha. The bitter would help them break down the excess fat in their body, and the pungent or the spicy would warm them up, because water tends to be pretty cold and earth is even cooler. So it allows the breakdown of all of that excess. What happens is generally a kapha person, because there's a law in the universe called like attracts like, kaphas love to go towards the other 3 tastes, which are sweet, sour, and salty, which causes that kapha to accumulate. So by the time they get through their kapha season, they're eating foods that they're attracted to. all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? How did I gain 20 pounds? Yeah.
Cool.
So what we're constantly doing is just, mitigating what we have an excess in and alchemizing these 5 elements in a way that we always get gold out of the deal.
Yeah.
So, like an alchemist can turn a base metal into gold, we're taking base elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, and we want gold every time. We don't want those excesses in the body.
And we want to be sattvic, the middle.
Very
not
much
too
so.
Rajasic, not tamasic, so not too overly active and not lethargic, but balanced.
Yes. Although kaphas in particular, their diet includes a little more rajasic food because they tend to be sedentary.
Stimulation. So let me do a quick little review, a little reflective listening here. You came to Ayurveda at the age of 22 as a mother of 2 young girls, another one to come soon, and you found the Divine Mother at that age. And she came to you and led you to Ayurveda, and it kind of made up for, in a way, missing your mother at a young age. And you found the science of life, which is what Ayurveda means, and that there's consciousness in the herbs behind you and the plants, and using both a Western-based approach from naturopathy combined with the Eastern Ayurveda so that you could communicate your role model wisdom up on the hill, literally and figuratively, and be the projector and guide that you're supposed to be. And that people can reach you for your hemp oil that can be sold anywhere in the United States by going to livingrasa.primemybody.com or your website, your personal website, livingrasa.com. And rasa means juicy. It means full of life and vibrancy and juiciness and Vijaya. Oh, I'm going to get verklempt. Oh, you embody that. So.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much for feeling it, because that's what that's about, is for us to have the rapport, the rasa.
Right.
You feel
you're the role model of this is what now in your 60s looks like when you've been practicing yoga and Ayurveda for 22 years,
It's longer than that. I started at 22. I'm 62, so that's 40 years.
Right, 40 years. So this is this is the role model, is you live by example. Like, these are the practices that I do. This is what I found that doesn't work. This is what I found that did. And let me share that with you. And you got to climb that hill, metaphorically or literally. Next time I'm there, I'm going to keep looking for my video, because I know I have filmed that before.
Tell you what, I'll film it for you and I'll send it over.
Okay, good. I'll include it in my edit. All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so wonderful to talk to you. I miss you.
I know. I miss you too. I'm going to come soon.
Oh, good.
Astro Yoga Woman, Debbie Barnett, signing off. Namaste.
Namaste.